What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tesla Geek Show. I'm Eli.
And I'm Anuarbek, and this week we have our good friend, Mr. Mars or Omar, on the podcast. The only reason I open X to chat about FSD, Robotaxi, and more. Alrighty, now we have Mr. Omar to come chat about FSD and Robotaxi. Omar, how have you been, man?
Yo, good to see you guys.
All right, dude. We'll just jump straight in. You are basically the official, unofficial mayor of Tesla Twitter, or X, in my opinion. Before we dive into FSD and Robotaxi, tell people a little bit about, like, what has your experience been, the pre and post Elon X, or Twitter versus X, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Elon has definitely changed a lot of things. He's taken kind of an opinionated stance. I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, he'll just kind of keep it as it is, he'll own it. That hasn't been the case. He hasn't been kind of a passive owner. He's been taking a very active stance in it. And, there's a little bit of messiness, a little bit of bugs. There was a huge reduction in staff. So there's been a little bit of hiccups here and there, but overall, I'm really enjoying the platform. I think community notes, what they've done there has really helped the discourse. I think the ability to turn on subscriptions for creators like me and ad revenue share, I mean, it's just game changing for creators that the same thing you were doing for free, now you can get paid hundreds or even thousands of dollars just to tweet. It's kind of crazy.
So you were pretty active, I guess, pre-Elon in Twitter with your Steve Jobs ghost, and I mean, you've been a very active user of Twitter, I think, even before Elon acquired it, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What drew you to Twitter? Because to be honest, like, I wasn't in those days. I kind of like really got into Twitter and X when Elon started using it more and more. Was it Elon being there in the early days, or just have you always kind of had a fascination with the application and the social media app?
No, it wasn't about Elon. I mean, I opened a Twitter account long before I'd ever heard of Elon, almost back when the site started. Probably the first year the site started, I had an account. And I remember when I was a teenager, I wrote a Twitter client using the API. It was one of the first apps I ever made that people started using. So I had a Twitter account for a long time back, and I'd always come there because that's where everyone in Silicon Valley was talking, discussing whatever's going on in tech. But I was pretty under the radar, right? I was a reply guy. I was kind of commenting on things. Nobody really followed me or cared what I was tweeting until I finally got a Tesla Model 3 in 2018. And then I just started tweeting about it, tweeting about how much I liked the car. And that's when I started to meet the Tesla short sellers. Okay. And they started commenting on my posts saying, oh, this company's a fraud. It's going to fail. It's going to go bankrupt. And I love the company. I love the car. I thought what they were saying was just ridiculous. So that's really where it all started.
I mean, and you've been on Elon's payroll for a while, I feel like. Wasn't that people for the longest time like, dude, this dude works for Elon, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's what the short sellers were saying. They were saying it's a conspiracy. This guy's not a real customer. He's just being paid by Elon. Yep. We even had this short seller, my stalker, Aaron Greenspan, who sued me and Elon, claiming that there was a secret relationship. But no, I mean, Tesla never paid me anything. I just love the products. But I mean, I guess now I do get ad revenue share from X and YouTube. Yeah. So that is something. But no, I mean, it always kind of just came from my love of the product, not being planted by Tesla or anything like that, like the shorts claimed.
Was the in the early days, were you using the handle, the Steve Jobs ghost, What was wasn't there
Yeah.
what that? Did you get banned or something? Or what was the...
Yeah. Yeah. Things got pretty crazy in those days. So I would go on and, tweet about my car, and you'd see all these anonymous short seller accounts.
Mhm.
And they would adopt these pseudonyms like, Elon's mom, or, Tesla turd, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they'd all be posting anonymously all this nonsense about the company, trying to scare people, make people think it was going to go under. And so one day I said, hey, why don't I make an anonymous account too? And I decided I would be Steve Jobs' ghost,
Uh-huh.
and I would tweet as the ghost of Steve Jobs. So I would pretend to be Steve Jobs and just mess with the shorts, call them out on
Yeah.
everything they were saying, until Aaron Greenspan doxed me. He published my real identity as a sort of retaliation for talking about the fact that he thought that he invented Facebook, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And then eventually they sent in a bunch of copyright requests to get the account taken down. They said I had posted a picture of him in a purple shirt, and sent a bunch of copyright notices and got the account suspended. But years later, I got the final victory when the judge ruled that he did not have a copyright over the purple shirt photograph.
Yeah.
And I hadn't actually violated any copyright by posting it. So that account's ancient history now. Never, it's kind of lost into the ether. But, that's when the whole Mars account kind of started after that. Steve Jobs in his Stanford commencement address always talked about the whole Earth catalog as something that he used to read. So after the Steve Jobs account died and got suspended by Tesla Q,
Yep.
I made the new account, or actually Scott, another guy, made the account, and it was called Whole Mars Catalog. So that's the story of where we all got started.
That's crazy, dude. I didn't realize that's where the naming came from. I was gonna ask you where Whole Mars is
Right.
just so random, but yeah,
A lot of
makes
people
sense
think
now.
it's like a play on Omar, because Whole Mars kind of sounds
Yeah,
like Omar,
that's
but
what
that
I
was
thought
just a
too.
coincidence.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. So so it sounds like you were active on Twitter, but really, to me, I look at you as one of the leaders in our Tesla community. Like, I joke with people, like, if Elon had a fan club or like Tesla community, like guys that kind of lead the way. I half was expecting you to be named in Elon's autobiography, because like a lot of what's happening online. I mean, I'm not joking when I say I open X or Twitter just to see what you're talking about, and then I spend a little bit more time there to kind of catch up on everything else. But a lot of, like, at least online, like, you are the tip of the spear for me, and I'm looking at the following that you have, like, to a lot of people in the community. And I feel like now you have like pretty big responsibilities as well, like um and just interacting with Elon and all that kind of stuff. Like, how's that been? Was that crazy in the early days? When did that transition happen, when basically, like, you're just a random person fighting Tesla Q, and I tell people, I'm like, oh, he's like friends with Elon, on I don't know if that's like in real life or online. I mean, there's a certain, like, can you speak to that a little bit? Has that been pretty crazy, just having Elon follow you and knowing that he's seeing everything that you're tweeting?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily say he's a friend. I obviously, just one day I was tweeting and never really thought Elon would notice some Steve Jobs ghost account. But one day he just responded, and I think his tweet that he first responded to was about cat girls. So he responded to me, he said something about cat girls, and I was like, whoa, Elon Musk just responded to me. That's kind of crazy. And then I think Bloomberg was interviewing me, and they said, hey, we want to get Elon to comment on this interview too. So I emailed him. I think I found his email somewhere and said, hey, do you want to be on this story? And he emailed me back. He said, hey, love your Twitter account. Be careful with journalists. And
Wow.
then we ended up interviewing him. We went to his house, the Willy Wonka house.
Yeah. I remember.
that he used to own, and we interviewed him there for a few hours as part of the Third Row podcast. So,
Uh-huh.
Since then, he's always just been responding to stuff. I'll email him every once in a while from time to time, and yeah, I mean, it's been really great just to be able to hear what he thinks on different topics. The ability to talk with him directly on X, I think, is really something you don't see on any other social media. To be able to talk to one of the most innovative and powerful people on Earth, who's bringing so many game-changing technologies to market, and just sort of conversationally talk about whatever's going on with Tesla, whatever's going on in the news. I definitely think that's pretty powerful, and one of the things that just makes X so unique.
Yeah, I tell people like the thing that's different about Tesla compared to Eli. Eli, I think he left while you were. Oh, there you go. I'll just I'll chime back in from here. Yeah, one of the things that I tell people about Tesla is that basically the pace of innovation is what's crazy at Tesla, right? Like even if there was another competitor, they change so fast. Another aspect of it that's interesting for me, speaking to your comment about the guy who's leading Tesla, other companies basically do like little field surveys, right? They'll get like 20 customers, put them in a room and ask them questions or whatever. That was a traditional way. Elon literally is taking suggestions about improvements to the company, improvements on the product, and we're seeing them being utilized, right? I mean, like last time when I was at the shareholders meeting, this just a few weeks ago, they talked about Chuck's turn and all this type stuff. These are all things that in the community, Elon has a really great pulse on what's going on, what's being said in the community, utilizing some of that. And then the other thing that's interesting is basically, I feel like outside of Elon, Tesla folks see what's going on Twitter. They follow you. Recently, I don't know if you saw the thing that was published by Electrica, I think, that like the FSD and the new FSD, like basically like some of the people on Elon as well as some of the guys like you are being tagged like VIPs. Have you seen that article?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of a silly article.
Yeah.
They're looking at the builds the data that Elon's car is generating and that the early access cars are generating, mostly just because those cars are running newer versions. The idea that FSD only works on certain roads or certain routes or for certain people that I think they were alluding to is not really the case. I mean, anyone can try it. They can do any route they want, and it's going to work pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I think the latest FSD, the 12.4, you've had like the first version about a month ago and the latest 12.3 for what, like a handful of days, basically.
Yeah.
What was it like finally to get rid of the silly steer wheel nag? Was that like a crazy thing for you, like in the beginning?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a game changer. And everybody who tries it, my dad, my friends, they all say the same thing. I mean, we've all been using autopilot with the nag for years and years.
Yeah.
So for the first time to be able to go hands-free, to just sit there and have the car just take you all the way to the destination without you having to do everything, without you having to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you really, for the first time, are able to feel like, okay, this car's really driving itself. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here.
Yep.
So I just starting to roll out now. I think it's about 10% of the fleet that has it.
Mm-hmm.
As everybody has it, it's just going to completely change the way they use FSD. And honestly, now there's a really good reason to subscribe for $99.
Yeah.
Before, a lot of people said, basic autopilot, it's free. That's already good enough for me for highways.
Yeah.
But for $99 a month to get rid of the nag, I think a lot of people are probably going to take that deal.
I'm worried about like my muscle memory once I get it. You know what I mean? Because like Well, that's one of the questions that I thought to ask you. I'm like, what do you do with your hands now? Like, because before we kind of had, right? Like you
Well,
kind of have.
whatever you want.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I
I
would.
mean, you can keep them in your lap. You can eat a sandwich. I
Yeah.
mean, I would probably recommend most people just keep them on the wheel.
Hmm.
You know, it's good to have your hands on the wheel, but now you don't have to be nagged for it. I mean, the thing
Hmm.
about the nag was you'd be holding the wheel and the thing is nagging you anyway. It just
Yep.
wasn't very good at
Right.
detecting if your hands are on the wheel. So people can still put their hands on the wheel or do whatever they want with their hands as long as they're ready to take over. But now it's not going to bother you like you need to be nannied to hold the wheel every 30 seconds.
Hmm. So it seems like you're pretty. I mean, you've seen this thing. You were early access, in my opinion, about FSD and all that kind of stuff. Can you talk about that? Was that like a random selection, or do you feel like it was because of your kind of relationship with Elon on Twitter? How did all that start? Because you've also
Hmm.
established a YouTube channel where you're cataloging all these drives, and so people can see it as if they're sitting right next to you. Essentially, maybe tell the
Yeah.
audience a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a lot of people sort of say, oh, the early access program, that sounds great. I'd love to be able to get the FSD builds early. I hate having to wait. But there is a flip side to it too, which is that at first it doesn't drive as well, right? So you're dealing with more mistakes, more critical issues, really trying to catch those ahead of time.
Hmm.
And I think I was on the early access program. The early access program actually dates before FSD. So I remember they would send me features like Smart Summon and things like
Okay.
that through the early
Like
access
autopilot
program.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the autopilot days. But then I remember when I was interviewing Elon, I said, "Hey, I'm really excited for FSD. That's supposed to come out soon." I think that was in like January of 2020.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
FSD didn't actually come out until like October of 2020 that year. So
Hmm.
about 10 months before FSD came out, we were doing the interview with him. I said, "Hey, I'm really excited to get that on my car." And he said, "Okay, when it's ready, we'll send you the early version,
Okay.
sort of, the sort of developer build." So he kind of just verbally said that when we were interviewing him. Then 10 months later, FSD comes out. John and Raj sort of post their video, and
Hmm.
everyone's like, "Oh my God, FSD is out. It's making turns."
Hmm.
And then I just got a phone call from someone at Tesla, 510 area code. And he goes, "Hey, this is so and so from the autopilot team. We're going to send you full self driving beta." So
Hmm.
this was long before anybody was allowed to try it. This was a super, super early version. And they
Yeah.
said, "All right, we're going to send it to you to try out." So they sent it to my car. I downloaded it, I installed it. I was in Los Angeles and I turned it on for the first time, and immediately it just jerked to the right towards a row of parked cars. My passenger starts screaming. I'm like, "Oh my God." And I take over,
Yeah.
and then I turn it on again, and then I see it make a right turn for the first time.
Yeah.
And I see it make a left turn for the first time, and I go, "Oh my God." My car just made a right turn on its own. It made a left turn on its own.
Yeah.
I'd never seen that. And the thing could barely drive straight. It was like going like left and right all over the place.
Yeah.
But at that moment I knew, wow, this is actually going to be possible to drive the car with just cameras. And fast forward to today, it's now able to do almost every drive without intervention here in California.
Yeah. I was gonna. I recently went to the Bay Area. Was in LA for a little bit, and then Sacramento, SF. And in Austin here, the Waymo cars, basically there are no passengers, and there's a person sitting there. So it's almost like I didn't understand that Waymos actually transport people without a driver until this last week when I was in the Bay Area. So from
Yeah.
what I understand, basically they have ultrasonics, all lidar, all these sensors, and it's basically like some sort of like mapped out section of downtown FS, if I'm understanding that correctly, right? So the reason I'm bringing that up is with the Robotaxi fleet coming up here soon. basically Tesla's approach. Elon at one point basically said, "Hey, we're going away from ultrasonics and all these other sensors. We're basically going full 100% all in on vision." When that happened, when you were testing it, what did you think of that decision? And did it seem like Tesla took like 10 steps back whenever that hardware shift happened?
Yeah, I think the decision to focus on pure vision was a strategically brilliant decision,
Mm-hmm.
and it's played out pretty well. I mean, when they announced it, everyone said, "You're nuts. You can't drive a car with just cameras." And when you look at today, what even the Hardware 3 cars are doing with the latest model, they're now able to do complete drives on their own using just cameras and the Hardware 3 computer. So I think almost nobody saw that coming at the time. And, Waymo, I love Waymo. I use them in San Francisco all the time. They use LiDAR and they use HD maps. They scan out the whole area, and then they can use LiDAR to find their position with centimeter level accuracy. It makes it a lot easier to do self-driving. And I mean, if you go try their service, it's now open to the public in San Francisco. Anyone can download the Waymo app, or in Phoenix, Arizona. You can call a driverless car day or night, rain or shine, and it'll just take you anywhere within the city of San Francisco, and it'll do it without any issues. So for the first time, we really have a proof of concept that self-driving is possible. There's no longer a debate about whether it's possible or not. Some people said you're going to need AGI to do self-driving.
Yeah,
but it's possible. They've really demonstrated it, and it works. And now it's about scaling. As long as people still own cars, there's a lot of work to do. They're losing a ton of money on each ride. And as a whole, I think people estimate they're losing about $2 billion a year. So there's been a lot of discussion about why that is. I think Tesla, with their Cybercab, is really going to show off a solution with the lowest cost per mile that has a chance to be the first sort of global, profitable, autonomous rideshare business, which is something that's never been achieved before. And you look at the EV business, they're one of the few companies that can make EVs profitably. Everybody else is losing money on them. And I think it's going to be the same case with autonomy. And I think that's going to be because of the pure vision solution that they chose to adopt. And it's been much more challenging to get the pure vision system to work. But the benefit is, as it starts working, the unit economics, the cost, is just a fraction of what you see from Waymo, who has cars that cost $100,000 plus. Essentially, you can buy 4 Model 3s that can run FSD for the same price as one Waymo car.
Right. Did you see the James Domo? I think is that how you pronounce his name? The article that he wrote.
Douma, yeah.
Domo, yeah, the FSD as a service. He called it FAAS. He basically was. I want to hear your comment. Like, I really enjoyed the article that he wrote. He basically was saying that like Tesla is the James Domo article was basically had a really interesting analogy. He was comparing when Skype first rolled out. I think what year was it? In 2003. It was like the fastest growing basically technology expansion, like a hyper expansion, because all the infrastructure were there, right? Everyone had computers, and all of a sudden the software comes out that makes it much cheaper for us to make calls and all that kind of stuff. So he was comparing it to Tesla, saying basically, all these all of us have smartphones in our pockets to access, right? To call a Robotaxi or whatever. There's over 3 million Teslas that are already out there that with a flip of a switch, software can be pushed to it, and road infrastructure is there. So the point that he was making is it's going to be this unimaginable hyper growth of Robotaxis, and that Tesla's going to maintain basically the market share. What do you think of what he's talking about there? And then the other part of it is it's a really huge moat. Like for a competitor, like let's say tomorrow, all of a sudden you can snap your fingers and Google figures out a better way to do full self-driving than Tesla. they still need to manufacture a shit ton of robotaxi type vehicles too, and they don't do that. Or do they partner with somebody? There's a couple of different elements there, right? Tesla's kind of got this perfect, like, it's not only software, the hardware's there, we're cranking on manufacturing, and it's going to be this perfect storm that comes from what I'm seeing. But again, like, I don't think it's going to be flip. In my opinion, Tesla's not going to it's not going to be available widespread all of a sudden. They'll definitely be key markets, probably the Bay Area. That's why they're focusing a little bit more there. Austin probably is going to be one of those markets. So what did you think of his? I don't know if you read his article, but what do you think about the concept that he was talking about there, about the growth of Robotaxi in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I think Waymo has about 600 driverless cars on the road, and Tesla has about 6.2 million cars that can run FSD around the world right now. So about 10,000 times more cars. And when you're trying to call a ride, you need something that's close to you that can get to you fast. And that really requires you to have a lot of cars out there. If you look at California, I mean, there's a Tesla on every corner. They're just all over the place. So one is never really going to be that far away from you. And I think that's going to be sort of a key enabler of what they're trying to do here. The scale that you need to not only deploy the service, but also validate it, ensure that it works. Nobody else comes close to what Tesla's doing.
What do you maybe just to wrap up, what are you excited about August 8th, 8/8? Do you have any? Do you think where do you think that the event's going to take place? California, Texas? I'm not sure. I mean, it's like less than a month away.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job of keeping things tight with we haven't really seen any kind of leaks or anything, but what do you, if you had to speculate a little bit, like, what are you excited about? What do you think we're going to see at 8/8?
Yeah, it's super exciting that we're less than a month away. Well, I think obviously we're going to see the Cybercab. It's a vehicle without any controls. Tesla's vision, I think it'll be kind of a two-seater robotaxi. I think it's going to be focused on the lowest cost per mile possible. And I think that they're going to do a demo for us live. So we'll be able to actually see maybe Elon or someone else get in the Cybercab, take a ride driverlessly, and get to the destination. So I think it's going to be probably one of the most exciting unveils they've done since the Model 3, really. And I think this product will be even more disruptive than the Model 3.
Yeah. What do you think we'll get to see the self-cleaning Tesla? I feel like that some of that could be built into the vehicle itself, is how I would imagine. There's got to be some hardware that they're doing for the car to kind of like clean itself. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of robots involved with cleaning these things, because that's a big part of it, right? Because how long can you run a fleet of robo taxis until it gets trashed by people using the car?
Yeah, that's a good point. It'll be interesting to hear him kind of talk about how that'll all work, the cleaning, whether there's hardware built in, or how exactly they plan to do this. I think one of the big advantages that Tesla has over like a Waymo is that Waymo owns all their own cars. So it's really difficult to scale when you own all your own cars. Now, the Uber model, where other people own the cars and you just bring them into your network when you need them and can adjust supply based on what the demand is and based on pricing, that's actually a much better model to scale than trying to own all the cars yourself, right? You're never going to have one company that just owns most of the world's cars. So you do need this kind of franchise model that Uber has. And I think Tesla's in a really good position to actually bring that model to market.
What do you think about the rumor? I guess Elon's dispelled it, that like Travis Kalanick, from the former Uber founder, would come to Tesla to lead FSD. But the other rumor that I heard is they might announce that Uber is gonna, ahead of time acquire 200,000 robotaxis or something crazy like that. Could you see something where like a company comes in and I mean, I feel like if they announce some sort of major partnership where they're getting like cash up front, essentially, like, hey, we promise to purchase 250,000 of these cars or whatever. Could that be something crazy for the car? Or do you see it kind of like what you're saying is basically like in the beginning it's going to be Tesla, but then we're going to basically license out FSD to, I would assume it would have to be EV cars as well, correct? Not internal combustion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Uber making a big order. Obviously, they don't own any cars, so it would be a little bit strange for them to order cars. But I think, I mean, honestly, I don't even know if they're going to allow us to buy it or not, or what the situation is there. That's going to be one interesting thing I'm eager to learn about at the event. Like, are they going to take pre-orders? Are you and I going to be able to order one of these? Because I would order one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll kind of have to see what their plan is, how they want to sell it, how they want to bring it to market. I think the Travis K rumor really started when Elon followed Travis. And it was a little bit strange because he hasn't been tweeting a lot. So people said, why did he follow Travis? And I think that's kind of how the rumor got started. I mean, he denied that that he's coming in as the head of Robotaxi, but maybe he's coming in on the board. That's probably unlikely. Maybe they're just talking as friends.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've got the Airbnb founder on the board of Tesla already. So I think he described the Tesla network as kind of a mix of Uber and Airbnb.
Right.
So, hey, why not put the Uber founder on the board too? He
Yeah.
sold all his Uber shares. He's no longer involved in the company. So why not have him join the Tesla side?
Yep. At the shareholders meeting, just to wrap up, Elon basically was saying this isn't a new chapter for Tesla. Him going all in on FSD, on Robotaxi. He's like, we've closed one book and we're opening a whole nother book. Just as an ending note, what are you excited about over the next like 5 to 10 years with Tesla? Like, what really, definitely FSD and Robotaxi, but outside of that, what are other things that speculating like you think Tesla could come up with? Like, do you think it kind of seemed like from the shareholders meeting that we could potentially be seeing a cyber van from Tesla? Do you think that'll be like a personal vehicle, or are they thinking of some sort of like, Robotaxi but bigger transport vehicle to transport more people? What are some things that you could speculate that excite you about Tesla's future?
Well, I mean, I just love the vehicles. I mean, as much as we talk about FSD, I just love driving. And I was just driving my Model 3 Performance, the new one, yesterday on the open highway on the 5. And I mean, these vehicles are just so incredible. And it's good to see them getting into new segments now. Like I've got a Cybertruck here right behind me. And, you know, I think they could extend that maybe, do a 3-row Cyber SUV with a 3rd row of seating instead of a bed and a smaller trunk. I think they are going to do a van, right? They had those 3 vehicles that were covered up.
Yep.
And, you know, I think the affordable Tesla, I think it's going to be around maybe the $30,000 mark. Now that is supposed to have, I think, steer-by-wire. Some of these new motors that don't use any rare earths. And I mean, just imagine a $30,000 small Tesla that's an entry level for people with steer-by-wire, a 4680 structural pack, and all that new technology. I think they're really going to knock it out of the park on that, especially in markets like Europe and China, where they have smaller streets and there's a lot of demand for a smaller car. So kind of expanding in both directions, the bigger vehicles and the smaller vehicles. I mean, Tesla has never produced a vehicle that hasn't been fun to drive. I've driven pretty much all of them. So I'm guessing that the bigger vehicles and the smaller vehicles they're coming out with next are going to be pretty crazy too. And it's always just good to see more people coming into the Tesla family, picking up the cars and just sort of falling in love and never going back to gas.
Dude, I did that. My friend Hamza picked up, he went from a Model 3 to a Model X yesterday. So I got to come join. I joined a delivery event and I met this random guy, Joshua, who, I think he transitioned from a Dodge Ram or something to a Model 3. And I was like,
That's a
please
big
call
upgrade.
me. Yeah, I was like, please call me in a few days and tell me your experience. And this was like the refresh Model 3. I was so excited for him. So yeah, I totally see what you're talking about. You and I have been part of this community for a long time. It's always great to see you, man. Hopefully we'll see you at 8-8, wherever that takes place. I'm going to be sitting next to you riding in the Cybercab. That's going to happen, dude.
Yeah. Hopefully I see you there. That's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, man.
Take care.
See you on 8-8.
Bye.